Hey, it's Clover. Welcome back to my channel and thanks for watching. Today we are going to talk about the Enneagram, a super powerful tool, kind of like a personality test that has really helped me in accepting certain parts of myself that I didn't realize existed, and also just kind of making me more self-aware and giving me kind of a guideline to how my personal development is going to look. So without further ado, let's get to talking about the Enneagram. So I have my blog post pulled up here for notes because it's a long post because the Enneagram is pretty deep. It's a big topic and you've probably started seeing it on Instagram recently, or if you're like me, heard about it on Chelsea Handler's podcast. I was listening to Chelsea Handler's podcast when I discovered this, and first of all, the Enneagram is a tool to help identify your type. And within the Enneagram, there are 9 different types, and each type deals with the world and perceives the world in a different way. So the things that motivate you are unique to your type, and also the things that, I guess in that way, the things that positively motivate you and the things that negatively motivate you are part of the Enneagram. And what I find really interesting about the Enneagram is that you can only be one type. So you don't change types as you continue on in life. The ultimate goal for the Enneagram is to have the positive attributes of all 9 types. However, if you're born a 3, and it's debatable on whether or not you're born with it or if it is determined by an early age and includes like your environment as well as your genetics. But if you as a young kid are a type 3, that's really never going to change. Like I said, the ultimate goal is to have the positive traits of all of the different Enneagram types. And at any time, you may be experiencing some of the traits or all of the traits of your type. And even within that, if you're stressed or if you're chilled or if you're feeling any type of extreme emotion, you may be presenting the traits of another type, which is kind of cool. What I really like about it though is the fact that it is an inside job. So many of these personality tests, which I'm not a big fan of personality tests because I feel like a lot of personality tests are so vague that it's easy to apply them to everybody. And for the most part, when I have tried personality tests, I have had really inconclusive results, which is possible with the Enneagram as well. If you're very like in the middle or kind of, answering vaguely or not giving any type of extreme for any of the options. But with mine, I ended up being a type 3 with a wing 2. And what's cool about it is who you are on the inside really doesn't change. Like, you can go through levels of development and, become a better version of yourself, but what motivates you and what brings you joy and what also scares you, that stuff doesn't really change from the time that you're a little kid. And that's kind of cool that the Enneagram measures that. So I think it's interesting because I do find a lot of truth in that, even though I found better ways to cope with some of the things like my internal fears or my motivations that may not be the motivations that I want to motivate me, like money or status or whatever it is. Those things don't change. I just can find out ways to behave differently in the world because of it, if that makes sense. So, in my post, which is a really, really long post about the Enneagram, I kind of go into a little bit of details about what the type is and all the different types. But in this video, I'm not going to really go over all the different types because that's something that you can look up. But I really want to talk about how the Enneagram helped me realize a couple of things about myself. Another reason I really like the Enneagram is because to me it seems more like a path to total integration rather than just here's your type, this is what it is, and you can't really change it. Within the Enneagram, on the Enneagram Institute's website, which I can leave a link to below, they kind of tell you what it is to be a healthy type, whatever your type is. I'm a type 3, so that's why I keep referring to type 3. And what it is to be an average Enneagram type of your type, and what it is to be an unhealthy type. So it's cool because you can kind of see where you're at within that spectrum of being healthy versus maybe not being so healthy. So I think for the most part, I am right in the middle of average, maybe a little bit above average, but it's interesting. So I am type 3, which I kind of knew I was type 3 when I was listening to the podcast, because I really hated the type, because in the podcast, Chelsea Handler, psychiatrist, kind of talks about the type 3 as being overly concerned with how you look and how others perceive you. And type 3s walk into a room and immediately think about what everybody else thinks about them and wants to impress them. And I hated it because I identify with that. And it's not something that I'm proud of, and it's not something that I want to be focused on, because that's one of the things in my life that I'm really working on, is not giving a shit about what other people think about me, which as a blogger and as a YouTuber, you're probably like, well, then maybe you shouldn't write about your stuff. But this also brings me a lot of happiness because I really like connecting with people. So besides that side tangent, 3-wing 2s are known as enchanters, in that they are charming and ambitious and enthusiastic, while always being driven with a love to achieve, which is very true for me. I feel depressed when I'm not achieving. I also feel like my life has no purpose if I'm not achieving, and it's definitely something that I struggle to separate, like the doer in me versus just like me. And sometimes I struggle with not knowing who I am when I'm not achieving. And I think what's cool about the Enneagram is that it's helping me to say like, okay, that's cool. That's just who I am. That's fine. Now, how do I mitigate any pain that this causes me? So I do adapt really quickly to an environment, and I do my best to appear successful in any situation that I am in, whether that is true or not. And type 3s, we struggle with imposter syndrome, because often if you're an unrealized 3 or an unintegrated 3, sometimes you try to be better than what you actually are. And so our struggle is aligning how we want to be perceived with who we actually are, rather than trying to pretend we're something that we're not, and then having to make up for it because we're kind of like boasting about who we are or pretending to be something that we're not. And eventually we just kind of like want to marry that and be the person that we say we are. And so here's like a couple of things that describe a type 3. The desire to fill other people's expectations while neglecting and confusing my own wants and needs and desires. Check. A tendency to work hard to become successful, but successful by someone else's standards without even realizing it. It's definitely been part of my life. Doing things to appear a certain way instead of doing things because I truly want to. Forgetting who I am and what I want. If you look at any of my past relationship posts, you'll see that I do that in pretty much every relationship I've ever been in. Being vain and worrying about what other people think of you, unfortunately. And I get the job done no matter what the cost, even if it puts my own mental and physical health at risk or on the line. And these things are all part of my internal world, and they're not things that I love, but it's kind of nice to like just see what I know about myself validated on paper, if that makes sense, where it's like, I know these things about me and this is telling me, yeah, these are true and it's okay because this is your type, but like, here's what we're going to do just to kind of mitigate that, because here are the things you need to work on. And the things that I need to work on are being the person who I say I am and understanding and acting on what it is I want, not what is perceived as successful or, well, it's successful. I mean, that's ultimately it. And I think throughout my life, that's been an issue because I'm constantly thinking about what I need to do to appear successful, but what is successful is different to all different types of people and communities and key stakeholders. So like what's successful to my family is very different to what's successful in my career, and what's successful in my career is very different from what's successful in the blogging world. And in the blogging world, it's very different what it is to be successful versus what it is to be successful in the writing world or the YouTubing world or Instagram or all of those freaking things, that it's like, if I'm constantly concerned about who I need to impress, then I'm never actually going to be able to, one, put all my focus in one area, and two, really focus on what it is that I want rather than what all these perceived people or communities or things want for me. So, and that's something that I have struggled with for most of my life. So each Enneagram type also has a basic fear, and my basic fear is that I'm not worthy and that I'm not lovable. And again, if you've ever been reading Clobert, you know that that is something that shows up for me all the time. And because I'm an achiever and because I'm a doer, I often find myself in relationships doing things way more than the other person is and taking care of the person way more than it's reciprocated. And that happened in my last relationship and the relationship before and the relationship before it, because my mom likes to say it's because they're taking advantage of my niceness. But at the same time, I think it's more to that. It's about me wanting to be the best girlfriend that you've ever had because I'm an achiever type and I need to feel validated in being the best everything that you've ever had. Even if it doesn't make me happy, even if it makes me feel resentful because I'm doing so much. And it's just it's one of those things that I do that is not necessarily altruistic, even though it may appear altruistic. And it's clearly something that I'm working on. So a lot of the times too, so with each Enneagram type, you have a core feeling when you are off balance. And my core feeling, there's three options. Your core feeling could be anger, fear, or shame. And mine is actually shame, which I'm surprised because I feel like I'm angry a lot. But I do get off balance, and when I get off balance, I do feel a lot of shame, and I think it's just because of that constant feeling that I'm not enough as I am, and once I feel the shame of not being enough, then that turns into anger, I think, because I do so much, and I want to be enough, and it's not fair that I have to feel like I'm not enough. So yeah, it's interesting. And my wing type also feels shame. So it's my whole type, not just my 3 type. Our feeling of inadequacy comes up a lot, and that's why we do so much in order to feel valuable. And so the challenge for me is to figure out how to feel enough and worthwhile and lovable and worthy when I'm not achieving. And when I was first posed with that challenge, I was like, how would I love myself if I wasn't achieving? I don't even know what that looks like, and I don't really want to. I like that I'm an achiever. I like that I'm a doer. But I spent some time thinking about it, and I'm like, this is where I need to work on, is I need to like learn how to love who I am and not what I do, because often in my relationships with other people, I get frustrated because I feel like people only love me for what I do. And if that's the case, how is it maybe I am pushing forward that situation because I don't even know how to love myself for who I am. And I only identify myself of having value when I'm doing things. So finding out what I am without what I do is a very foreign concept for me, but it's really important because there will be times in my life where I can't do as much. There will be times in my life where I can't achieve as much. There may be a time in my life where the achieving ends, and who am I going to be when that stops? So it's something I'm working on, and I wrote out a list of all the things that I love about myself that have nothing to do with achieving, and it's been helpful, and even recognizing when I have the urge to do that isn't necessarily an altruistic urge to do. And while I think that I've made some progress, I still have a long way to go. But anyway, I love the Enneagram because it really focuses on that aspect of personal development rather than just this is who you are and deal with it. So I'll leave some links in the bio below, and if you liked this, please feel free to subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye!